woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Jameson Williams has been so impressive these last couple of weeks. What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Brown. It's been a minute since we've done an audio edition of the show, but I'm here about 25 hours away from the 2022 NFL Draft. I am the night before with a cup of coffee in hand. It's Christmas Eve. I'm excited, and I'm excited to be back on the audio side of things. I've kind of taken a hiatus from the show a little bit on the audio side just because we've been pumping out so much video stuff on YouTube, which you guys can get caught up on the Cover One YouTube page. All you have to do is search Cover One, subscribe, and you'll find the Cover One NFL Draft weekly show that myself and Rich Haynes did together. He did a great job driving the car as I kind of rambled on about prospects. He put a bunch of scenarios in front of me. We had mock drafts. We did a lot of NFL Draft Q&A stuff. So it was a lot of fun. But I wanted to do one more episode of the show before the draft. And primarily this episode is going to be breaking down my final 2022 NFL mock draft. I'll be kind of going through certain scenarios of what I could see happening, what I think will happen, all this stuff. But beyond that, I just wanted to just touch briefly and say thank you to everybody that has rated, reviewed, subscribed to the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast over the years, especially this past year. It's been a very up and down year for me outside of the NFL Draft world, but it's been a successful one, and it's been a lot of fun covering the draft this year. And I'm kind of, I don't know, I guess I'm having that epiphany or that moment of just appreciation because you work so hard for 365 to get to this moment. And we're a day away from the realization of franchise-altering decisions for some of our favorite teams in the NFL. And I thought back of, where I was at last May, last June, from the followers on Twitter to the people I didn't know to the people I now know to hosting a podcast by myself and not really sure what direction the NFL Draft would go for the Cover One site. And I still kind of controlled the car and was part of it in a big way. And then, I brought in Damian Parson to be a co-host with me, and I appreciate him for his hard work and spending so many months with me and so many weekends just talking ball. And he goes off and he's at the Draft Network doing great things over there. And I've been kind of riding solo with this show for a little bit of time, but I've been having a lot of fun just doing it because I walk into the office, I click record, and we talk a little football, and it's always fun. But that's why I was so into the video side of things because I was having so much fun working with Rich and talking with the fans and everything that we were doing on the YouTube stuff. So definitely check that out. But it's been a long year. And it's been just a fun one that I'm super grateful for. A few weeks back, I joined Woodward Sports, which I've been doing a lot of draft stuff for them and doing a lot of just appearances and things like that. And just I'm having so much fun covering the draft that as I look at 2022 come to a close for this draft cycle, I get ready for 2023. I'm just feeling confident, head down, I'm grinding, I'm getting ready for full-time work in the NFL Draft. I believe it's going to happen, but I just got to keep working a little bit harder every step of the way. So that's kind of where we're at. Don't mind my phone as we continue to, as it continues to blow up on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. But again, I'm rambling on. I need to get going here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little NFL Draft. Tomorrow's the day. Enough about me. Enough about my appreciation. You don't really care. This is what we got to talk about. And what we're talking about is it's very simple. It's very simple. My final mock draft dropped today, 3.0, the third one of the year. I did one after the Super Bowl, one after free agency, and here we are the night before the draft. It dropped, and I'm going to go kind of pick by pick a little bit. I'm going to go into detail a little bit, and it's really cool. Before I do, I just also real quick want to say shout out to my wife. She surprised me today with a binded copy, physical copy of my 2022 NFL Draft Guide. I've done this for 3 years. I've never actually gotten a physical copy before, but I'm live tomorrow in downtown Detroit at the Brass Rail for Woodward Sports, covering the NFL Draft from pick 1 through 32. And I said I would like to have, a lot of my notes in front of me that I've already kind of keyed out on a lot of these players. So she downloaded the guide, she printed it out, she put it all together, probably at Staples or whatever, but shout out to them, shout out to her. This is an awesome gift the night before the draft, and I'm having a coffee rather than a cocktail, but it is what it is. I got a lot of podcasts and radio stuff to do tonight, so we're going to get into this now. I'm going to drop this. I'm going to be tweeting out what I'm doing next, so follow me at Russ NFL Draft. Follow along for what's going to be a crazy ride over the next 3 days, but here we go. Pick number 1, Jacksonville Jaguars. They've been on the clock for quite some time, and over this time frame, we have believed that this team is going to go Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau. For a little bit of time, we thought maybe, hey, Evan Neal. And honestly, you're not wrong. About 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Evan Neal was, from what I had heard, the top player on their board. That's kind of now changed. And there's a specific team that is operating under the impression that it's going to go Trayvon Walker with the first pick and Kayvon Thibodeau with the second pick to the Detroit Lions. So with that, we could see the potential Trayvon Walker pick. I mean, I think that's what it's going to be. I feel fairly confident about it, but at the same time, this is so crazy, right? Like we don't have the consensus pick where like last year it was Trevor Lawrence. It was like, boom, that's the guy. This year, I just don't know. But Trent Baalke, the way he kind of goes about things with traits, athletic ability, size, Walker fits all of that. He fits the bill of what Trent Baalke does as a general manager in the history of drafting defensive ends. So Walker makes a lot of sense here. And I take Walker in my first pick of the draft simply because of kind of off of how it's been looking, how I'm hearing things, and how the betting odds really have just turned incredibly favorable for Walker. I mean, there's no way of even making money on that type of bet. So when that normally happens, it kind of feels like a thing. Again, though, just kind of wanting to put it out there. If it was Evan Neal or Ike Ekwonu, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, going to Detroit, Kayvon Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon. Metro Detroit would be really shocked if Aiden Hutchinson was not the guy at 2. But I'll be honest, is it really that surprising? Kayvon Thibodeau going into this year was the top player in college football. He was the projected number 1 pick for the 2022 NFL Draft last year. And Lions fans, if you would have told them last year on the week after the 2021 NFL Draft that if they were picking 1 or 2 and they were going to get Kayvon Thibodeau either way, that they would be happy or upset, I promise you they'd be running to the podium and saying, yes, draft this man. So I'm not opposed to it. Brad Holmes, I don't think, is opposed to the idea. I don't think Dan Campbell is opposed to the idea. We've seen Brad Holmes up close and personal with Kayvon at the Oregon Pro Day. And you have to keep in mind, Brad Holmes is heavily tied to the West Coast. When you look at the first draft last year, 7 picks in total, 4 of them were from the Pac-12 conference. So there's heavy ties to that West Coast, specifically the Pac-12. And Kayvon just makes sense. And could they steer me wrong? Could they go Aiden Hutchinson here? Yeah, they could. But if anybody's sitting here saying it's going to be Jordan Davis, Kyle Hamilton, Malik Willis, they're wrong. I don't see that being the case. Now, at one point, I did hear Malik Willis, future quarterback of the Detroit Lions, but that's not true. So it's Kayvon, and I feel confident enough that before I hit record tonight, I pressed $50 on a bet for him to go 2. So I feel pretty confident in that, and I feel like I'm going to make a little bit of coin tomorrow night pretty early in the draft. So the Houston Texans are 3, and they're interesting. They're a wild card. A lot of people say Carolina at 6, the Giants at 7. What do these teams do? Do they trade out? They've been heavily rumored to trade out. Houston's interesting at 3 because this entire time, whole draft process, they have been linked to Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley. They've done extensive work on both prospects, and over the weekend, it was kind of speculated that the Texans would surprise some people and that the pick would be surprising. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're leaning towards Derek Stingley. Now, they could pivot and they could go back to Sauce because that's what I had heard over the weekend, that they liked Sauce more, but I guess that's not the case. And I wish it was the case because I could sit there and then go with my original line of good thing Houston has good barbecue because they're about to get lost in the sauce. I thought that was very creative, but that's not going to be the case. Is Ikem Ekwonu a logistic option for them, or a realistic option for them, a legit option? Yes, he is. But again, I see Stingley. There's too much, I think, smoke around that. And when you think of Lovie Smith, a Tampa 2 defense, they value corners. And if Stingley is healthy, he is very much in play to be the best corner in this draft. So we'll see what the Texans do. 4, New York Jets. Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle, NC State. That's what I have them doing. But Aiden Hutchinson is sitting there, and I have such a hard time believing that Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas would pass on Hutch. But at the same time, I had heard Kayvon Thibodeau, New York. That's where he's going to end up, one of those New York teams. That's not going to be the case now. So does that change, obviously, what the Jets do with Kayvon? Do they take him off and do they put Aiden Hutchinson there? Or do they go with a different player by the name of Jermaine Johnson? That's been the other heavy rumor. And about a week and a half ago, I heard about Jameson Williams being a legit option at 4 because they love his speed. The Jets want a playmaker at wide receiver. They've obviously been, it sounds like, involved in conversations with the 49ers in regards to Deebo Samuel. So there's a lot of intrigue there. But Ikem Ekwonu, NC State, I think gives the Jets a lot of flexibility, versatility across their offensive line. I know they have George Fant at right tackle. I know they brought in Lincoln Tomlinson. I know they've done some things up front, but Mekhi Becton could very well be done with the Jets in general. That's been a rumor over the last 24 to 48 hours. But even if he's not done, I mean, how can you not be concerned about this guy? Playing weight is an issue. Injuries have piled up. He's missed a lot of time in 2 years. So the Jets could very well go Ikem Ekwonu, who could be a safe and very valuable pick, maybe comparable to like a Deion Dawkins in a sense, because I thought Dawkins was better suited as a guard. A lot of people think Ekwonu's better suited as a guard, but I think Ekwonu could play left tackle for the Jets if they need him. So I think there's so much to take away with the Jets, and it sounds crazy that they would pass on Aiden Hutchinson, but at the same time, it's very possible. So if it happens, it happens. But I'm going to go with Ekwonu here. The Giants at 5, I think this is where the slide stops with Aiden Hutchinson. And I think when you look at this, there's no way he can go beyond 5, because if he goes beyond 5, there's like at 6 somebody would be calling the Panthers with, hey, we want to move up. Like the Texans have been rumored to be a team that wants to move up. Could the Texans go from 13 to 6 and not only grab Derek Stingley but Aiden Hutchinson? Like that's incredible to me for Lovie Smith's defense. So that's why I think the Giants will take Hutchinson at 5, because Evan Neal and Charles Cross, one of the two will be there at 7 if they want an offensive tackle, or they could go defense and they could go Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati, which with, Martindale, the defensive coordinator, he wants those press corners. He wants those physical man-to-man type of corners. So I think at 5, Hutchinson makes a lot of sense if he's there. And when you think about pairing him up with like an Azeez Ojulari, man, that is fun. That is a lot of fun. So I would be stunned if Hutchinson fell to 5, but I would also be stunned if he fell beyond 5. So I think that's kind of where the floor is for him. But if you want to put $5 on Hutchinson going 5th, I think it pays like $120. I think it's worth taking a stab at off of some of the things that I've gathered in the last 24 hours. The Carolina Panthers. And don't mind me, guys, if I take a step back and there's a little bit of a long pause. I might drink my coffee, might catch my breath for a minute, but I'm super pumped, so I'm going to keep talking. The Panthers at 6, Evan Neal, Charles Cross, the offensive tackle, makes a lot of sense. Now, it does sound like they've done a lot of research on quarterbacks. We know that. Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. I think they could go one of 4 ways there. Cross, Neal, Willis, or Pickett. I'd be stunned if it was Ritter or Corral. I think ultimately they're going to try to trade out of this pick, and I don't think they're going to find a suitor. I think their asking price might be a little bit too much, and I think if we are speculating that the Panthers want to move back to gain day 2 draft capital for this year or next year to potentially land Jimmy Garoppolo, why would the NFL, why would other teams give them that privilege? They're not going to. I have a hard time buying that they're going to trade out. So I think the guy that they want is Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. Again, it could be the Giants and the Panthers kind of playing hardball with one another in the simple fact that they want Evan Neal. But that being said, if Cross is there at 6, I think they plug and play him at left tackle. That's the biggest need that they have on their offensive line. And I think he makes a lot of sense. He's one of the best pure pass protectors in the draft. He's very patient. He's got great length. There's some flexibility issues, I think, at times. I don't think he finishes as well in the run game, but that can be taught. But most importantly, it's a blindside protector, and the Panthers, I think, would be better with Cross. So that brings me to the Giants at 7. And the Giants are interesting, as I mentioned, at 5. I think the Giants are very serious about moving out of that 7th pick. They've been heavily linked to Charles Cross this entire time. But at the same time, I think that if Evan Neal falls to them, they will have a hard time moving beyond the 7th pick. I think they're going to stay put. They bring him in. That gives them flexibility to kind of figure things out with Andrew Thomas. They can put Thomas on the right side. They could play Neal on the right side if they want. He's got experience at right tackle, right guard, left tackle. Every year he played a new position at Alabama. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But if they go away from the offense here and just stay away from the trenches after the 5th pick, again, Sauce Gardner staring them in the face, I would have a hard time believing that they would not take him if he was there. He's here, but they go Evan Neal. I think starting in the trenches is a very good way for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to start this regime. I could be wrong, but I think that's the way to start this thing off, especially considering Daniel Jones potentially on his last year. Even if he's not the guy of the future, you kind of have a solid offensive line, a foundational piece in front of the next guy, whoever that may be. So I would be really intrigued to see what the Giants do ultimately at this spot. Again, a trade down. Could it be Houston? That's very possible. Could it be, maybe a team like Minnesota? Could a team like the Jets want to move up? Again, very possible. Very possible. So Atlanta at 8. They're interesting. They have coffee break. Hold on. They have done a lot of work on the quarterback position. Matt Corral is certainly a name to keep an eye on. And I think that's a guy that they really like for the back end of the first round. I think Kansas City, Green Bay, those teams are going to try to take advantage of the second day of the draft. And I think Atlanta is going to move up and try to get their wide receiver 1 and a potential QB1 for the future. I could be wrong there, but that's what I see. Atlanta at 8, though, they kind of get the pick of the litter at receiver. They could go Sauce Gardner here with A.J. Terrell and him. That would be very fun to watch. Kyle Hamilton is still on the board, but ultimately I think Drake London is the pick, the wide receiver out of USC. Again, you could go any direction at wide receiver here, and it's a benefit for a team that does not have a top wide receiver right now in the NFL. I mean, Calvin Ridley's not coming back. They have Kyle Pitts, but you need somebody else to play opposite. And really, I mean, let's be honest, Pitts is a tight end. He's not going to always flex out wide. Like, he's just not. He's going to be in line. He's going to be in the slot. You need somebody on the outside, on the perimeter, and there's nobody better in the draft than Drake London. 50-50 ability anywhere on the field. He's got that basketball background. He's going to be a menace down in the red zone. That would help a player like Marcus Mariota quite a bit, especially down in the red zone. So I kind of like this pick a lot, and I like that fit. Seattle at 9. I mean, I've heard some stuff from last night and even kind of the day before that they've started to kind of do some research on quarterbacks. And the guy that kind of gets put into that top 30 visit, quote unquote, that's not a real thing, but the guy that gets put in that top 30 visit stuff is Desmond Ridder. I would be stunned as hell if Ridder was the 9th pick of the draft. I think ultimately they could settle on Malik Willis here. I think that they could be interested in moving up with maybe Carolina. They have 2 second-round picks. They have 40 and 41. They could move up and get Malik at 6. I could see that 100%. But if Sauce Gardner is there, as we mentioned, top 30 visits, Sauce Gardner is one of the few players that has got like kind of that first-round grade that they've met with. I mean, they've met with other corners like a Cam Taylor-Britt, some other small school guys, but those are small school guys. They're not going to take them in the first round. I get it, Seattle, but you sit there and you have a boundary corner fall to you at 9. I'm like when I did my mock draft, I was stunned that I had Sauce Gardner go this low, but I think it's a realistic landing spot if the Derek Stingley stuff is true. So if Stingley is there, I see Seattle grabbing him. I would have a hard time believing that they would pass on him. I think at 40-41, they could package something up, and maybe they move up and get Desmond Ridder somehow. Maybe it's Buffalo. Maybe it's the Cowboys at 24. Maybe it's the Packers at 22. I think that there's enough there to where they can get back up into this first round and grab Desmond Ridder if he's available. Call me crazy, but I think it's possible. And I think Kenny Pickett is also an option there as well, for the simple fact that if he does start to slide, is it to a team like Seattle where they're able to trade up? The only thing I'm saying is I expect the team to try to get in front of Tennessee. I would not trust Tennessee at 26 with Desmond Ridder hanging around. We'll see. But outside of that, for Seattle, I mean, some wild cards away from the cornerback and quarterback stuff. Jordan Davis from Seattle. I know they have Poona Ford, who was undrafted, and he's been a good pick, but I mean, Jordan Davis is just, I mean, that kind of screams like Seattle or Baltimore, right? Like 6'6", 341, runs a 4.78, a massive human being. He would make a lot of sense for a team like a Seattle that just needs a guy to be plugged right in the middle and just be dominant from the go. But the other rumor has been Trevor Penning. I mean, there's been a lot of ties to him and a lot of linkage that they might take him a lot sooner than people think. So anything's possible. The good thing for Seattle is they got a hell of a haul for trading away Russell Wilson, but they also have enough draft capital where, one, they can get a really good player at 9, and then they could potentially move something into the first round and get another talented player. So, like, they're in a pretty good spot. And even if they kept 40 and 41, like, they could still get some valuable day 2 players in the second round. So we'll see. But Seattle, I mean, if I had to put their board together today, I would have to think Malik, Sauce, Jordan Davis, Trevor Penning. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then obviously the potential trade up for, maybe a Desmond Ridder or something. The Jets at 10. Jermaine Johnson, edge from Florida State. I mentioned him at the 4th pick. We've talked about Aiden Hutchinson potentially at the 4th pick, but the Jets kind of go in the trenches here. They have the capital to kind of get fancy and cute on the second day of the draft. Again, they could move back into the first round if a receiver, potentially falls, or a corner that they really like. Maybe they want to jump in front of Buffalo, and let's just hypothetically say they give up both second rounders, or a second this year and a third rounder next year, or whatever, and move up and get into, in front of Buffalo to get Kaiir Elam. Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe Andrew Booth falls right to their lap. I mean, who's to say that doesn't happen? So Jermaine Johnson, though, at 10, I mean, if he's there, I think that's their run to the podium. We're going to take him. I think they're going to really contemplate, obviously, Hutchinson, Sauce, one of the offensive tackles at 4. But if Jermaine Johnson is there at 10, you run to the podium. Could they go Jameson Williams here? They could. But I with everything that's kind of been linked to Jermaine Johnson, I think he's been kind of in the process for them very early on. He was a Senior Bowl guy, and I think that they're going to ultimately look at him quite a bit at that 10th pick if he's there. Commanders at 11, they've done a lot of work on receivers. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Kyle Hamilton, Jordan Davis. Defense is, it's Ron Rivera. There's no reason to think he wouldn't go that route. Deron Payne's on the last year of his deal. I personally don't see him coming back, and if he does, good for him, but I don't see it happening. So is this kind of your way to replace him with Jordan Davis? Maybe. Kyle Hamilton, top-tier defender in this draft. Is he there at 11? Most drafts probably not, but in this draft he is. So is Hamilton an idea for the Commanders? Absolutely. But they've done a lot of work on the Ohio State guys, Olave and Garrett Wilson. And I think if Drake London is gone, I think Olave is the guy. And I think it's simply because of the pairing with Terry McLaurin, the fact that you get two tremendous route runners in your offense. They can create separation. That should help Carson Wentz, and that should help ultimately your passing offense and your just offense in general. So Olave, to me, makes a lot of sense. Again, Hamilton, Davis, those could be the wild cards, but I see Olave. And then at 12, Kyle Hamilton, the drop, it stops here. Harrison Smith is 33, 34 years of age. Cameron Bynum is their free safety. But at the end of the day, like Kyle Hamilton could be that free safety, could be very versatile in multiple different roles on that defense. Again, Minnesota could try to trade out. This could be a trade-out spot for a potential quarterback, but I can't do a bunch of trades all the time because I'll never get the mock draft done. So I think Hamilton, Vikings, lock it in. I mean, I have a hard time not locking that one in. The Texans at 13. This was an interesting one. Again, I could see them going up or down at this 13th spot. I've heard that there's a lot of intrigue of moving up for an offensive tackle if there's one that falls. But the Texans can land Garrett Wilson here. He kind of falls right to him. I think Jordan Davis is kind of sneaky. I've also heard that George Karlaftis out of Purdue is a real option for them at 13. But again, if they move back, maybe they move back with, let's say, New Orleans. They get a little bit extra draft capital. They move back, and maybe the Saints move up and get either a quarterback or a wide receiver or even an offensive tackle in that sense. And the Texans move back, and they're still able to land a George Karlaftis. I think that might be a win for the Texans. But other than that, I mean, I see Garrett Wilson. I think that's a good fit for that offense to pair him up with Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins. You got to give Davis Mills a weapon. So that's how I view that pick, getting a weapon for Davis Mills or whatever quarterback is there for the future. Baltimore Ravens at 14. Jordan Davis has been heavily linked to this team. I could see it being a possibility, but a few weeks back I heard Trent McDuffie. I saw him get mocked there a couple times, and I can't get that thought out of my head. Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, those guys were a little bit banged up this past year. Trent McDuffie comes in. He can play in the slot if you need him to. He's got great range. He's got the ability to run in the hip pocket of receivers. He's got this alpha mentality. I think the Ravens absolutely love him, and I feel like that's the pick. Again, if it's not McDuffie, I could see Jordan Davis. I could see them taking a stab at a Jameson Williams here if he's available, but again, I think defense. You bring in a new defensive coordinator, you need to get him acclimated with something that he wants or needs to kind of get the ball going. So I think McDuffie makes a lot of sense. And I guess a linebacker would be kind of a sneaky need for them as well. Josh Bynes is the other linebacker opposite of Patrick Queen, and I don't trust that at all. So McDuffie makes a lot of sense. Or a linebacker does make a lot of sense, but I like McDuffie there. Eagles at 15. The Jameson Williams drop has finally ended. Similar to kind of Devontae Smith last year, kind of just falls to the Eagles. Jameson Williams here falls to the Eagles. I think the Eagles are very much in on Jameson Williams. I think he wants to go there. I think they want him there. Again, it could be just smoke. He could be already off the board. But I think the Eagles going at the wide receiver position makes a lot of sense. Now, if Trent McDuffie is there and Jameson Williams is gone, that would make a lot of sense. And I think that would be a really good pairing. I also think a Devin Lloyd here wouldn't be a bad option for them. I think getting a linebacker makes a lot of sense for a defense that needs help in the middle. But if Jameson Williams is there, I mean, he's just so explosive, great burst. He's going to take the top off of defense. He's going to really help Jalen Hurts. He's going to really help Devontae Smith as well. So I think this is a win-win for the Eagles to go, Jameson Williams, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith. What a trio that will be in the NFC. The Saints at 16, Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. Look, they lost Taron Armstead to free agency. I would be stunned if they didn't take an offensive lineman at this spot. And if Trevor Penning is there, I just how could they pass on him? I mean, he reminds me so much of Garrett Bowles. I think it's a great thing for a team that really needs left tackle help. He's so aggressive, so physical, and I think he makes sense for what the Saints need at left tackle. I don't see how they could pass him up. If they did, again, could it be, for a quarterback like a Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis here? It could be. Could it be for a wide receiver? Yeah, I guess, but like if you look at what happened here in the mock draft, 4 of them just went. So I think it's tackle and then hoping that a quarterback is there at 19, which it should be, because you're probably going to get your option of Malik Willis and or Kenny Pickett. So the Chargers at 17, Jordan Davis is there. I like the thought of Jordan Davis in that defense, putting him right in the middle with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. My goodness. But at the same time, Zion Johnson, I think it's a great pairing. I think when you look at what happened with Rashawn Slater last year, just kind of fell into their lap. Zion Johnson, same type of deal. I think he's versatile and athletic enough to play right tackle if they needed him to, similar to like Isaiah Wynn from a few years back out of Georgia. But he went to the Patriots. He's playing left tackle for them. But Zion Johnson, Chargers, he can play either guard spot. Again, he could play center for them. He could do a lot for that offensive line, and it's about protecting Justin Herbert. It's about getting that AFC North going in the correct direction. Or AFC North, getting them competitive enough and going in the correct direction for the AFC West. So give me Zion Johnson there. If it's not that, again, like 15, 16, 17, 18, that's kind of the alternating spots for Trent McDuffie, a wide receiver, Jordan Davis, offensive tackle, Zion Johnson, maybe a QB, like some type of combination there. But that's just kind of my mindset. At 18, Eagles, Jordan Davis, that's got to be the guy. I think they've done a lot of work on the interior defensive lineman here. Fletcher Cox is back on a 1-year deal. Davis, again, could very well be a top 10, top 12 type player because of how well he tested. But I think the Eagles, if they get an opportunity to draft him, I think they're going to probably do it. And again, they could do it at 15 and then potentially see a receiver fall to them, or see it's not sexy, but a Zion Johnson falls to them, or they, at 18 they take a linebacker. Maybe it's Devin Lloyd, maybe it's Quay Walker. A lot of speculation that he's going to go top 20. So maybe there's a chance there that he's a pick at 18. So I think the Eagles are interesting. It's a perfect haul for them in a perfect world, Jameson Williams and Jordan Davis, but at the same time, teams do some crazy things, off-the-wall stuff, and if Quay Walker is potentially their guy, I could see the Eagles making that a thing, and Devin Lloyd slips a little bit, and Nakobe Dean ends up out of the first round. I could see that completely. The Saints at 19, Kenny Pickett, quarterback, Pittsburgh. The fall stops here on the quarterbacks. If Kenny Pickett is there for the Saints, I have a hard time believing they're going to pass him by. I think there's some people that probably really like him down in New Orleans. I think he can compete right away with Jameis Winston, excuse me. And if Jameis Winston is not healthy or not even close, not the same guy after the injury, you bring in this guy to compete from day one. I think it's a home run for them. Now, if they don't go that route, again, is Trevor Penning still there? If they didn't take him at 16, very possible. If they don't go, do they take a Treylon Burks here? Do they take a Jahan Dotson? All possible. But I just see Kenny Pickett, and I think he reminds me a little bit of Derek Carr, and I think he's just somebody that I can see it. I can totally see it. Dennis Allen is the head coach of the Saints. At one point, he was the head coach for the Raiders. And if I remember correctly, Derek Carr was somebody that was there, Derek Carr was there in the 2014 NFL draft. So, I don't know. We'll see how that goes, but that's kind of what I see in a sense of what the Saints would do at 19. It might not work out. I don't know. I'm sorry, folks. I'm just reading a little bit on Dennis Allen announcing Carr being the starter, and then they went 0 for 4, and Dennis Allen was let go. So they lost 4 in a row, and Dennis Allen was let go. So we'll see. I mean, maybe Kenny Pickett's his guy. We'll see how that plays out. I didn't put that together in the mock draft. So thinking about that live here right now, kind of catches you off guard a little bit. 20, Pittsburgh, Malik Willis, quarterback, Liberty. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if Malik was a top 10 pick. It wouldn't surprise me if a team trades up for Malik. But Pittsburgh could be that team that trades up for him. But Pittsburgh really likes Malik. They've liked him since the Senior Bowl. And I think he makes a lot of sense for what Pittsburgh needs to do. I think they're going to take a quarterback ultimately. If Pickett and Willis are gone, Desmond Ridder would probably be their alternative, and I like that fit just as much as I like Malik Willis. They want mobility, and I think they're going to find it with either Willis or Ridder. And again, I like it. I like seeing the Steelers do something a little bit different rather than some of those boring in the trenches defensive players sometimes that they take, swings on safeties that shouldn't be in the first round. So, we'll see how it all kind of shapes up for the Steelers. But outside of quarterback alternatives for them, man, I don't know. Maybe Trevor Penning if he's there. I don't see a guard. I don't see an edge rusher. We could see a corner here. Maybe. Could there be a receiver? Possibly. Could Treylon Burks potentially be a guy for them? Maybe. But again, I just think they've gone all in on QB, and they're going to find a way to get one of these guys, Ridder, Willis, Pickett. And then moving to 21, the New England Patriots. I mean, hell, your guess is as good as mine. At one point, I had heard Zion Johnson. I think that would be a guy that they really like, especially after moving Shaq Mason. Could Kenyon Green be another one? So I think a guard is very much in play for them at 21. But if Devin Lloyd is there, he just kind of screams New England Patriot. Maybe Quay Walker as well. When you just kind of think of like Kyle Van Noy, he's gone. They maybe want that longer, versatile linebacker type, and Lloyd and Walker kind of makes sense. So I think those are kind of the options. Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green on the interior part of the offensive line. Devin Lloyd, Quay Walker. Maybe they look at a Trent McDuffie if he's there. I know he's been commonly mocked here, but I think McDuffie will be gone. So I think Patriots will go with one of those 4 players. But again, who knows? And again, they might be a team that trades out. You never know. The Packers at 22. I got Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan. We could see a receiver here. Jahan Dotson, Treylon Burks, both are there. Those would be kind of the next players up on my board. And I think probably the same with the NFL. But they've done a lot of work on George Pickens. And again, this is why I think they are going to trade out of one of these picks to get additional draft capital to potentially move up on the second day of the draft and get George Pickens or get another receiver. And I could see them doubling down in the second round, like George Pickens at, let's just say they get up to 36, 37. They take George Pickens right before the Bears. And then later on in the second round, they take David Bell out of Purdue. I think that's a win-win for Green Bay. And if they're able to get a Daxton Hill here at 22, you bring in a very versatile safety on the back end. He can play as a single high, as a dual safety type player, can play in the slot, very athletic. I love the skill set here for Daxton Hill in the Packers defense. So obviously we'll see. I think Zion Johnson would be a sleeper pick if he's available. Other than that, at 22, I mean, there's been so much to wide receiver. They've done the work on the receivers, but again, I don't see them doing it in the first round. They haven't done it in 20 years. 23, Arizona Cardinals. Man, George Karlaftis, Arnold Ebiketie, Boye Mafe. One of the edge rushers makes sense here. But I know my boy Damian Parson wants a cornerback for them pretty badly. But I just think offense. Whenever you watch that team, you think offense. And Treylon Burks is available. Now, I like the fit of Jahan Dotson, but I think they could really utilize a player like Treylon Burks when you think of the different spots and how versatile he is in an offense. He could play in the slot. He could play out of the backfield. He could be an H-back. He's going to be very productive, I think, with Hopkins on the outside and then just Kyler Murray throwing him the football. I think he's going to run a lot of jet and orbit motions out of the backfield. You have Rondale Moore as well. So I think you get kind of a little variety there. A smaller, maybe a little bit more of a gadget player in Rondale Moore, and then you get that bigger slot receiver in Treylon Burks. And I think that just sounds fun for the Cardinals, and it just seems like something that they would do. More offense, more offense, more offense. But if they don't go that route, again, Karlaftis is here, Ebiketie is here. I like Ebiketie as a perfect fit in this offense or in that defense. But could we see Kaiir Elam? Maybe. If Daxton Hill is there, maybe. Kenyon Green is available. Zion Johnson would make sense. I think they need to upgrade the offensive line. So the Cardinals could go in a lot of ways, but I'm justifying it with Treylon Burks just because I think that, again, I could picture that selection in my head. A pick before the Cowboys getting an opportunity to draft an Arkansas Razorback from Jerry Jones. And with that, the Cowboys at 24, Kenyon Green, Texas A&M. Look, Connor McGovern and Terrence Steele are fine at left guard and right tackle if you want to just be average, but I don't think they do. They want to get Zeke going in the correct direction. They have to keep Dak Prescott upright. Kenyon Green is experienced with 35 career starts. He's got good length for the position. He can play left tackle. He can play, again, either guard spot. I think you can plug and play him, and Kenyon Green has been heavily linked to the Cowboys. So if they don't go that route, I could see an edge rusher here, I guess. I see offensive line. I can't talk myself out of offensive line. Again, edge rusher, could it be Karlaftis? Maybe. Could it be a Treylon Burks if he's available? Maybe. But again, I think the value of the interior offensive part of the line is important for the Cowboys. The Buffalo Bills at 25, the moment everybody's been waiting for. I don't buy into the running back stuff. It could happen, but I just don't believe it. I think Kaiir Elam is somebody that the Bills are secretly really keeping a close eye on. I think they've brought him in for visits, kind of behind closed doors type thing, and I think Kaiir is a perfect fit for that defense. He can be a press man corner for them if they need him to. He's going to get a little bit better within zone coverage and understanding where he needs to be with his drops. There's just times that, he's a little bit hesitant, and he doesn't really recognize what's going on around him or in front of him, but at the same time, he's got great length for the position. He is very athletic for the position. I think he can really solidify himself as a number 2 corner in this defense opposite of Trey White. They lost Levi Wallace. He almost had 1,000 snaps played last year. So they lose him to the Steelers. Trey White on a torn ACL. I think corner is their biggest need. I think the Bills are smart enough to know that. They understand that they are kind of in a luxury spot to take a running back, but at the same time, you can get Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller. You can move up for one of those guys if you need to, or Breece Hall if you need to. Kaiir Elam, if he can reach his potential, and it's a good fit. The Bills are a great fit for that. If he can reach his potential, man, it's a home run. So outside of that, I would take Elam over Booth. Booth has got the injury concerns right now within his lower body, and that instantly scares me. I kind of write players off with that. I think there's times that he plays a little bit too hesitant. I think he's at times slow in and out of his breaks, out of his back pedal, and I think he just kind of trips up on his feet. His base gets a little wide. He kind of leaves his feet when he's tackling. His technique kind of gets a little crazy. So here, Elam, he's consistent. He is consistent. His tape can get a little boring. He can get a little grabby. But again, there's a lot of potential with Elam. He is 40th on my board, but I like him. And I think the Bills would be smart to take him. Last year, they were in a similar spot. They took Gregory Rousseau when I didn't think they were. And I think that's going to work out for him. Kind of the same thing here. A week ago, I wouldn't have said Kaiir Elam, but today I say Kaiir Elam. So we'll see. Tennessee, 26. I've said it. Desmond Ridder, quarterback, Cincinnati. My first mock draft of the year, I had Matt Corral. I think it's very possible. I think it's a great fit to kind of sit behind Ryan Tannehill for a year. And certainly for Corral, he needs to add weight to his frame. 205 is not going to get it done in the NFL. But Desmond Ridder is somebody that if they needed him to play today, they could. But he's got a big arm. He can run zone read concepts really well. He's a winner, and that's the biggest problem with Tannehill. He can win in the regular season. You can go 12-4 or 13-4 or whatever the record is now and be a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed, but it doesn't matter when you get to the playoffs and you lose and you choke. Ridder has 44 career wins in his career in college, third most all time. Mike Vrabel, Luke Fickell, been linked together from their days at Ohio State, very close friends. I think Ridder has somewhat of an in with Tennessee from that Cincinnati, Kentucky area. A mature quarterback. I think it's close to home for him. I think it's great for him. And I think it's a perfect marriage. Now, if the Titans go opposite and they're like, nope, we're buying into the window that we have with Ryan Tannehill, which keep in mind, if they keep Tannehill for a year, they let him go, they can free up, I believe, close to $20 to $25 million. It might even be a little bit more than that. But that's important numbers to keep tabs on because A.J. Brown wants a new contract. He needs a new contract. You don't have the money to bring him back if you keep Ryan Tannehill. So keep that in your back pocket, folks. Aside from that, defensively, again, I could see a corner here like Kaiir Elam. I could see an Andrew Booth, essentially a Kyler Gordon would make some sense here. I could see George Karlaftis as well. I think, Danico Autry, if they moved on from him, they could save some money. They could get out of Bud Dupree's contract this year and I think save close to $20 million as well. So if they wanted to go that route, it's very possible. They did re-sign Harold Landry, but I see Ridder. I don't see the offensive lineman like everybody else does because, frankly, I have him off the board. Kenyon Green is gone. Zion Johnson is gone. I'm not going to have the Titans reach for an interior offensive lineman here. Tyler Smith, maybe. But at the same time, like, if I had to pick Desmond Ridder or Tyler Smith, I love Tyler Smith. But the Titans, again, the thing that's holding them back is the quarterback play in the playoffs. So I'm gonna try to strike when just keep in mind, Ridder, 5-year contract, a 5th-year option as a rookie. It's a rookie quarterback deal. You essentially have 4 to 5 years. You expand your window. Your Ryan Tannehill window is a year, maybe 2. With Ridder, it expands an extra 2 to 3 years. It makes so much sense for the Titans to do that rather than anything else. So we'll see how that shakes up, but I really like Desmond Ridder to the Tennessee Titans. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 27, Devontae Wyatt, interior defensive lineman, Georgia. I just love this fit. The pairing with Vita Vea is great for that interior part of the defensive line. We could see Lewis Cine. We could see, could we see a Tyler Smith here? Maybe if they wanted to move him inside to guard, I guess that's a possibility. Trey McBride would make some sense because, the stuff with Rob Gronkowski is very murky right now. We don't know if he's coming back. O.J. Howard is gone. So they could use a tight end, and I've often said that if there's any way a tight end can go in this first round, it's Trey McBride, because if Brandon Pettigrew can go in the first round to my Detroit Lions years ago, there's no reason why Trey McBride can't. So I love the fit for him in Tampa Bay, but ultimately I settle on Devontae Wyatt in the mock draft. I love the lateral movement skills. I think he's going to get a lot of one-on-one time, and I think that's huge. So I like this fit a lot. Atlanta, 28, mock trade here with Green Bay. I think Green Bay... Green Bay is going to get a second rounder, the 43rd overall pick, and a third rounder in this draft, 82nd overall pick. Atlanta will receive the 28th overall pick, and this is the move for, you named it, Matt Corral. I think that this is a perfect move for Atlanta. I really think Atlanta is going to be active, and even though they give up pick 43 and pick 82, they still get pick 28. They have 58, 74, and 114. They've got some draft capital in the top 115, and obviously Green Bay, by making this trade, man, they are hooked up. They have 22, 43, 53, 59, 82, and 92. So they would essentially have 6 picks in the top 100, or maybe 7 picks in the top 100. I might have misspoke there. 6 or 7 picks in the top 100. Either way, that's a win for both teams. And I think Matt Corral in Atlanta gives him a year with Marcus Mariota. I think you could see some comparisons between the two players. And if Atlanta's moving up here, it makes sense. Now, if the Packers stay put, it could be for a receiver. Maybe it is Sky Moore. Jahan Dotson is still available. I like that fit for him. So I think that's a possibility. And Christian Watson, I guess, could maybe be a wild card. George Pickens could be a wild card, but there is some character concerns there with him. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I don't see Green Bay going another route. Maybe Tyler Smith if he's there. But again, I don't know. Is it George Karlaftis? Maybe. But again, I see the Packers moving out of one of those spots. I see the Falcons moving in, and I think it's for Matt Corral. So we'll see. 29 and 30, the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, the Chiefs could very well package both of these picks. They have 12 total picks. They could move up into maybe the top 15, top 20. Maybe they could draft a Trent McDuffie if he's there, or an edge rusher like a George Karlaftis if they want to guarantee to get their guy, or the most common guy that they move up for in most mock drafts is Jamison Williams because it's a great fit for the offense. But I have them staying put 29 and 30. I think they'll be active on the second and third day of the draft. Boye Mafe, the edge out of Minnesota. Kyler Gordon, the corner out of Washington. I think both of these guys make a lot of sense for this team. Boye Mafe would pair up opposite of Frank Clark. He could also replace Frank Clark. He would be an upgrade over Mike Dana. Mafe's explosive. He's got great bend, flexibility. He wasn't used correctly at Minnesota. He would be used correctly here in Kansas City, and I think it's a great fit. Now, again, Karlaftis is there. It's possible, but I like Boye Mafe. And again, when I look at this team, the two biggest holes are edge and corner, and I think you fill them here. They lose Charvarius Ward in free agency. I think they have to get a corner. Kyler Gordon is going to be at the draft. I like the aggressiveness he plays with. I think I don't want to say he plays that honey badger role, but I think that they could use him at times similarly, and he might play up on the outside. He might play inside. He's going to move around a lot, but he's physical. He's a good tackler. I love the fit of Kyler Gordon in the Chiefs uniform. I'm not going to go into much detail other than that because Could they take Arnold Ebiketie? Yes. Could they take Karlaftis? Yes. Could they take Andrew Booth? Yes. But Mafe, Gordon make a lot of sense. 31, Tyler Linderbaum, interior offensive line out of Iowa. I don't know how he falls this far. I think he's one of the 7-8 best players in the draft, but he ends up because of positional value, because of size concerns. And if he's here, I think it's a home run. I think the Bengals take him. They can take Ted Karras, move him to guard, and Linderbaum can play center. I know they swung and they missed on Billy Price, but the Bengals would be smart to go Linderbaum here. Could they go Tyler Smith, Trey McBride? Maybe, but Tyler Linderbaum, if he's there, I love that fit. And then lastly, my Detroit Lions at 32 could very well be a trade-out spot for another quarterback. If the Atlanta stuff doesn't happen, Atlanta could very well move up with Detroit here. But Lewis Seen, safety out of Georgia, he's available. He might not be. He could be the second safety off the board. If it's not Lewis Seen, I think it's Nakobe Dean. I really think it's two players here for the Lions at 32. They want somebody in the middle, back-end part of their defense that's going to be a good leader, a good character guy, that's physical and has really good play speed. And I think Seen, Dean, either one of them makes sense out of that Georgia program. So we'll see. But I know Seen has met with Detroit. And again, I think with what they're trying to build, they got Tracy Walker, Lewis Seen. I think those two guys complement each other very well in Detroit. So that being said, the final mock draft of 2022 is in the books 3.0. You can check it out over at cover1.net. You can also find it on my Twitter account at RussNFLDraft. So I go through the process of what I'm thinking, what I'm hearing, and we did it in under an hour. Pretty impressive stuff. If you guys haven't done so already, check out my draft guide. It's pinned on my Twitter account, again, at RussNFLDraft. You can find it on cover1.net. It's free to download. Free to download. You don't have to pay me a dime. If you're feeling generous, feel free to send it to a charity. There's 3 charitable links in the article, before you download the PDF file. So feel free to check all that stuff out. It's going to get you linked up, ready to go for tomorrow night on the 2022 NFL Draft. It will also get you ready for day 3, day 2, all of it. But this has been so much fun this year, breaking all this stuff down. I love being able to do it. I love being a part of Cover One. Great group of guys here and females here. It's a great team. We got a great fan base. We got great supporters. If you are in the Metro Detroit area, you want to come check out the Brass Rail tomorrow, I'll be there, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live streaming on Woodward Sports on their YouTube page. Again, we'll be live downtown at the Brass Rail. Come meet me. I'll be there all night breaking down the draft. So check it out. But if you guys haven't done so, rate, review, subscribe to the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast. Find me on Twitter, again, at Russ NFL Draft. It's been fun this year. We've been banging out content. We've got the draft guide. We got the mock draft, the perfect mock draft. We're going to have some fun over the next 3 days. I appreciate everybody and their support for following along. Everything is going on up. Everything is going well. So we are going to keep it going. We're going to keep grinding. Again, appreciate everybody. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the draft. And until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.